like to introduce now Miss Rebekah Jones. So in September 2018, she became a GIS analyst at the Florida Department of Health in Tallahassee. From November 2019 until May 2020, Ms. Jones, as a GIS manager for the Florida Department of Health, she led the agency's geospatial response during Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Dorian, and most recently tracking the COVID-19 pandemic in Florida. May 2020, she was dismissed over bogus charges from her job after refusing to manipulate data in the state's dashboard to make the case for reopening Florida's economy. In June 2020, she created her own dashboard, Florida Action.
Florida COVID Action.
Florida COVID Action. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
That's located here. And she raised more than $170,000 on her GoFundMe page to launch her own COVID-19 data dashboard. And recently, her team, Florida COVID Action and FinMango, have joined together in a new endeavor with Google COVID-19 Open Data Project in developing a new dashboard for schools called the COVIDmonitor.com. This project will provide the U.S. nation the most comprehensive COVID-19 data set focusing on coronavirus cases in every K-12 school district across the United States. Her story of resilience is a great example of someone who had endured great hardships in order to provide accurate information to the public. This could happen to any of us, and possibly somebody may be enduring the same situation as we speak. Despite officials' efforts to discredit her, she has never lost faith in herself and her ability to provide information to the public. She is a shining example for us all, which is why she was invited to talk with us today. Let us welcome with great praise, Ms. Rebekah Jones.
Hi, everybody. So we discussed earlier when we were organizing this event that I would like to not lecture and give a kind of brief talk, and then we would open it up to questions from you guys to see what you want to know, or anything that you want to ask me, because I feel like if you wanted to listen to me talk for a really long time, you could just go watch one of the multiple news interviews that I've done. So these are my two projects, Florida COVID Action and the COVID Monitor. The COVID Monitor was recently launched to help, as he said, track K-12 cases in schools across the country. It's kind of a multifaceted approach of gathering authoritative data from state, county agencies, school districts themselves where they're self-reporting, and crowdsourcing information from communities when they find out about cases and need an outlet to report it. So, oops, I hit the wrong button there. That's the title, and I'm sticking to it. My idea of what this would be has kind of evolved since I was originally asked to it, but really it does boil down to communicating data and uncertainty with COVID-19. If you want to see my kind of graphic design affinity, you can go to either one of my projects, but I'm keeping this very clean, very simple, so that we can not focus so much on the slides and focus more on the conversation. Right now, you're in my home. This is my bedroom, actually, with my homemade backdrop, and my bed is over there. And the odd thing is that a lot of you may never have heard of me before today, and some of you may have already formed your opinions of me, good or bad, without having actually ever spoken to me or met me, which is very strange. So welcome to my home, and you've met me now, and I guess this validates all opinions. You probably saw this picture of me somewhere in the news. Please don't ever use it. I hate it. It's horrible. It is everything to me that symbolizes the exploitation of kind of what happened to me. So we'll use this one instead. And the about me, because I know there's a lot out there, but my CV is actually online at academia.edu. It's also on my personal website, geojones.org. But I graduated cum laude from Syracuse University with degrees in geography and journalism. Went to LSU to do my Master's of Science, had majors in geography and mass communications. My geography focus was in paleotempestology, which is the churched up version of historical hurricane analysis over varying climate periods. And my communications minor was in health and science communication and crisis communication. Then I came to Florida State to do my PhD, also in geography, in paleotempestology. So that is my science background. And I wanted to talk more to specific because this is a data science conference and we want to focus on how we're able to get the best information out there as it comes to us using the information that's available. And there always seem to be two basic rules to any kind of academic study, or at least in climate change, this was always the rule: reproducibility and open data and open code. So climate change is held to a very high level of scrutiny, as you might have heard. I feel like now epidemiology has somehow become more controversial than climate change, which is hilarious to me that I just keep jumping from one very controversial science to the other. But open data and open code and reproducibility were our laws. If somebody couldn't take the exact same data that you had and use the same models or even different models and come up with the exact same results, that was a problem. And that seems to be something that was an honor code among us as scientists, that you should be able to do both of those things. And unfortunately, that is not what has happened. If you've tried to get state data, depending on which state you're trying to work with, you might have run into bureaucratic roadblocks. For example, in Florida, DOH until about a month and a half ago told researchers that they'd have to wait till next year to get any of the preliminary data they released every single day. So this is something that has become increasingly hard, but something that we as researchers and scientists need to really stick to. So here's my short run of the advice: is to speak out and clearly and on point. You are the public face of your own research. It doesn't seem like it should be that way, and it traditionally has not been, but that is where we are at. Make it clear what you do not know. This is so important, especially as we deal with such a rapidly evolving situation that hasn't happened, in a century. We need to be very clear about what we're not sure about, because otherwise we get a different news story every day saying, oh, they were wrong about this, oh, they were wrong about that. That's not necessarily true. If you look at those articles, you'll see that they spoke to uncertainty, but the people who authored them never came out and said, well, we're not entirely sure, but we have some evidence of this. Which brings me to defend your work. You have to defend your work. You are the champion of the work that you are doing. And note where work needs to be done. If you look at these kind of points, they seem like what you would put into a conclusion section of an academic paper. And you really need to kind of adopt that, take it out, and let people know what you're doing. And then expect pushback. It's not fair. It shouldn't be that way. We're all just researchers trying to do our best, but that is where we're at. My more personal advice, if you are, most of you guys are in academia, but if you're in government or another type of environment where there's a possibility of something like this happening to you, my advice to everyone who's approached me is get everything in writing. I was given a directive, or an unofficial directive in April to stop putting everything in emails in case somebody submitted a public records request, because they didn't want anybody to know what we were doing. That's a red flag. That means that they don't want anybody to know what they're doing. Get everything in writing, protect yourself. Insist on transparency. Don't just suggest it, insist. It may get you in trouble, but if you're in the right place with the right people, you'll be protected. And listen to people. When people like me come out and say, be careful about this, get everything in writing, back it up. Listen, we've been through it. It's not something that anybody imagines in a million years it'd ever be involved with. Believe me, I'd never thought that as a geographer, which is really what my title is, I would be famous or pseudo famous or whatever level of celebrity I have. It's just not something you think is possible. Why would people care? Is what I'm doing one person on a team of many that important? There came a debate about what is science and who are scientists. And, I made geography famous for a little while, which is great. But then it became a takedown on how we define the parameters of who is doing science and who isn't. Which means we also need to work together. I was floored by the support that I found almost immediately in the academic community. People who had worked with me before, either while I was at DOH or while I was a researcher at Florida State or LSU or in Louisiana. I also worked for the state there for a while. Support each other. If you are confident in someone's work and their character, defend them. Let them know that you're on their side. Communicate with each other about what you're doing. Let's not insist on ownership of things. This is about combating a crisis. And a lot of people who are here right now will hopefully use a lot of the things that they've learned here to apply to other types of crises, which is very important. And it's important that we remember that we need each other to make the best models, to come up with the best information products that we can. It's very, very critical. So we're going to talk for a bit. Let me go back to this because I did actually prepare some written things, which I normally don't do, but I felt that it was important to kind of get this, and I wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up. So Mike kind of went over why I'm here today, but I'm really here because I've become a celebrity of sorts on how to piss off a governor. All I really did, though, was say no to doing one wrong thing. I was asked to do something wrong that I knew was wrong, and I said no. Now, in the moment that I said no, I never imagined that it would result in me getting my project taken away from me. And I didn't think I'd get fired. And I didn't think it would land me on every news station for 3 months straight. I didn't think it would get me a book deal or a TED Talk or keynote speeches, or that I would become the most visible public enemy of Governor Ron DeSantis. And when people call me brave, I don't honestly understand why. Because I like to believe, and maybe this is still some level of naivety that I've maintained through this kind of crazy experience, but I like to believe that if any of you were in my position, you would have done what I did. What I was asked to do was use the data and the tools that I had created to tell the people of Florida that the state was ready to reopen when it wasn't, when the data itself said otherwise. And when all the models said we were not ready, that doing this could lead to catastrophic number of cases and deaths, which we underestimated by more than 70%, I was asked to go in and change the numbers so that they would look like they did, that it was safe. And I knew that doing that would endanger the lives of millions of people by giving them false information, providing false security, and lying to them during a pandemic. And I've got a couple dad jokes that I worked in here, so I hope they land. So I know most of you come from academia, where anybody can get caught up in the bureaucratic and petty interdepartment disputes. So there's a couple Harvard people here. You can just ask them why there's no geography department on their campus. Right now I need like the drums. And that none of us are safe from consequence, not even in Sweden. Another low joke. But I had a beer or two while I started writing those, because normally when you give a keynote, there's some sense of levity to it, and it's very hard to do that when you're just talking to your camera. But I tried. And I'm 31. I'm unemployed and unemployable, and my once promising career kind of just ran off a cliff, crash, burn, washed away. So I don't seem like the type of person who should be lecturing my peers on anything right now. And I asked myself, what insight could I possibly provide to any of you that you don't already have? And I've actually been asking myself that a lot recently. What do I know that you don't? What have I learned through this that you haven't? And what experience could I have possibly lived that you don't know? And then it hit me. Nothing. I have nothing. Nothing that you don't know. Nothing that you haven't learned or read or seen or lived. What I am or what I've become is a voice for the shared experience that we've all lived. The knowledge that we share as a community with each other, and the lessons that we have collectively learned. I was given that voice not because I earned it, but because I was the right person in the right position in the right time in the right place to say no. Each of you has fought just as hard as I have for every ounce of ink, whether in an academic journal or in newsprint. And each of you has lost sleep, missed meals, spent countless hours at your computer without moving while doing your work. When you look down at your watch and it's 2, and then you feel like you've typed for 10 minutes and you look back and it's 7. All of us have been there the last 9 months. And each of you, I believe, could have had this platform and this voice if you had been there instead of me. Well, I take that back. There's one experience I've had that I doubt any of you have had. And I'm pretty sure that I'm the only person here who had the governor bring up their college sex life on live TV in front of the vice president. I win that one. But there is a useful lesson in that. When the head of a state defames you in front of the second-ish head of the state, people see exactly who is lying and who's telling the truth. People who are armed with truth don't resort to smear campaigns and salacious false sex stories, and they do what I did. They stick to the truth, they commit to it, and they spend every waking minute and some sleeping minutes dedicated to it. And here's the real truth. We are nowhere near out of this mess. Some of you, I'm going to throw my pages down now. Some of you guys are probably looking to make a career off of the research potential that there is for COVID-19. Let me sharing this for a sec. And we'll go, how do we go to my camera?
You're already on your camera.
Okay, you guys can see me?
Yes.
Okay. So I know that a lot of you guys are going to look forward to making a career off this. And a lot of you, it's just a project that you're, because you're coders or you're programmers that you're working on now and you plan to move on from. But there are so many potential discoveries in our field of research, geography, data science, that we can apply to other global crises. Climate change, I'm biased, but climate change is one of those things. If we can take these applications, studying the methods that we use to collect all this data, to disseminate it, to prepare information products, there's a lot of people who are already doing such a good job of it, then we can really, really advance our understanding of a multitude of problems. And I think that everyone who's here is attracted to this because we want to help fix things. We want to make things better. We want to improve the lives of people. We want to help protect people and keep them safe. Sorry. That is my timer to let me know that it's time for Q&A. So I wanted to make sure I didn't run over, but honest to God, thank you guys. Thank you for everything that you are doing, because this research is invaluable. And I know you guys are hitting roadblocks left and right trying to get, a high level of detailed information, but we will have it eventually. And the harder we fight for it publicly, the more pressure there is on people to allow us to do this work, then the more work you'll be able to do. I honestly believe that. I've seen that. Just since I've launched the COVID monitor, 6 states that were not reporting statewide case data in schools are now reporting. And that is the type of public pressure that we need to be able to do work that really matters right now, when it matters. So that is my spiel. And I guess we will open it up to questions.
We do have some questions, Rebekah. So I do have one here. What advice do you have for the data community to educate people who are resistant or ignorant to the quality and accuracy of data in order to help bring them along the data narrative?
Okay, so I think the basic question is, what do we do for people who don't understand the complexity of data to help them understand what's going on? Is that the gist? Okay. This really goes down to communication, speaking effectively, clearly, staying on point, understanding what people who you're speaking to, your audience, might not understand going into it. A lot of the time as academics, we forget that the people we're talking to don't have, 8 years of statistics behind them. And we start at a place that leaves them already lost. Start simple, but don't be condescending, and be clear. That is really the most important thing.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. We do have another question. Can you comment on your thoughts on determining uncertainties in the COVID case counts?
um, that is a very complex issue. I know that I've been looking at a lot of data models trying to estimate the underreporting of case data, especially in the early months when we had limited testing availability. And I think one of the things that's going to have to be done is tedious and going to be time consuming, and it's a reanalysis of hospitalizations, deaths, and probable cases that were missed. Now, I know that there's a lot of more epidemiological focused models to estimate incidents within a community. That kind of information is going to have to be applied as well. But it's going to take time for people to go through all those records, and it might be difficult for some states to get them to release it. So unfortunately, that one's not going to be settled for a while.
Okay, we do have another question. What resources do we have, speaking in general, what resources do we have to bring justice to what, DeSantis is doing to the numbers?
Hmm.
Or what resources do people have in general to provide more accurate data?
They have us. This is the most important thing. They have us. As I mentioned, speak out, speak clearly about your work, defend it, make it clear what you don't know, but also defend your work. If scientists start speaking out, if we speak clearly, and we become humanized, we're not just some machine that spits out a number. The public will find us, they'll reach out to us. We can, piggyback on other people's celebrity like mine. And I try to, share as much research as possible. But really what they have is us. Because if we deal with states like Florida who are not going to release the correct numbers, then all we have is public accessibility to our research. And that is really the most important thing, is allowing the public to put that pressure on their own representatives.
Rebecca, got another question here. What advice would you give women interested in public health and climate change, but lack confidence in their math and computer skills? Because I'm encouraging my sister to improve her GIS skills.
Okay, well, good for you. GIS is awesome, and geography is awesome. For women, I kind of have this philosophy that I always tell women, just act like you're a man. Live with the same expectations that a man walks into, and strip yourself of all the extra ones that you put on yourself. And I know that sounds a lot simpler to do than what it is in reality, but walk in with the same confidence into every situation that you believe a man has, and do not put those additional limitations on you. I'm not saying they don't exist, they absolutely do, and I'm writing a book that kind of centers on that. But you have to start thinking like they do. Otherwise, we're just going to trap ourselves. Believe you can do it because they can do it. If they can do it, you can do it. It's really important to not put additional limitations on ourselves when the world is already putting so much on us.
Okay, I have another question. I'm trying to decipher this. Is there a way to enable a standard platform for scientists to speak directly to the public in a way the public understands without a lot of effort on the part of the scientists?
There are, but you have to be careful, because depending on how public you want to be, you may not want to, go on Twitter and within your same feed that you're talking about politics, start talking about science. They're just going to discard you. I can do it now because I, for some reason in the very beginning, was put on a certain side, and that was the end of it for that. But I'm a deep state plant or something. Some woman said that I was a Satanist who was channeling satanic energy through her computer to drain her life force. This is, yeah. If you don't want that kind of stuff, then speak within your own community and say, hey, we're working on this. There's a person who we can use as a point person to kind of share information about our research if we don't want that direct attention. And that's really important too. There are a lot of scientists in this who are public. In Florida, we have a couple, Jason Salemi, Natalie Dean, who have a large following, and you can speak to them because they will actually know how you as a person can get your information and message out. There's not right now like a platform like sciencetalk.com, which I'm going to buy as soon as this is over because that actually sounds like a really great idea. And but maybe we'll build it. If somebody here wants to build it, let's build it.
Okay, great. Another question. What would be your opinion on the most important part of communicating with data?
I would say keep it simple, stupid. That kind of expression is people are already scared. They're already overwhelmed. Not as much now as they were months ago, but as schools reopen, that's going to change. And if we bombard them with numbers without context or in a very giant block of text, like an abstract, they're not going to read it. Design here is so paramount to communication. If you don't have a graphic design background, hire somebody who does, or ask for help from one of the many unemployed people who does, because people really need. None of us are heart surgeons, right? Or there might be, but I doubt. And if we wanted someone to explain heart surgery to us, there would be certain things that we would really want them to hit on. And there might be a lot that the surgeon thinks is extremely important in process and in study and in practice, but those aren't necessarily the things that I, as a member of a non-expert in that field, would care about. So think about what that person or those people really want to know and need to know and break it down simply. Because if you ask any non-expert in a different field what they're doing, that is what you are asking them to.
All right. So there's data. So data quality is really important part of communicating with data. So how does ensuring data quality, how important? Yeah. How does one ensure data quality during these times?
That would vary greatly depending on your what data you're getting, where you're getting it from, who's managing it, who gave it to you. Best practices for data quality assurance are still applicable here. Nothing has changed with that. But you need to be a little bit more careful about data that you're getting from agencies that may have different types of reporting standards than others, especially if you're comparing across states. Let's say the probable cases and deaths statistic that Florida has never published, has refused to do, but other states do. And then we end up with this, oh, well, the rate per, New York is so much higher than Florida. Well, we don't count probable cases or deaths. And that makes a big impact. So nothing's changed with data quality assurance. Just know your source. That's the most important thing. And it always has been the most important thing. You're dealing with politicized data. And that is as important to remember as what your hypothesis is to begin with.
Thank you. So what projects are most at risk without data quality checks, in your opinion?
What are most at risk?
What kind of projects are most at risk without data quality checks?
It's kind of a hard question to answer. Can the asker give us an example?
I guess, let's say dealing with climate data.
Which projects are most at risk?
Or projects.
From
what kind of projects you think would be most at risk?
For what? Sorry.
Sorry. I guess the question is not too clear, but I'll just move on to the. I'll come back to that. It's all right. Yeah. So there's a question: what are the barriers to entry to transferring to a GIS industry, besides purchasing software license or basic understanding of programming?
Basic understanding of geography. I noticed this in climate, and I notice it now, that if you lack a fundamental understanding of any of the key variables within this kind of situation, then you run models day and night, but that doesn't mean that you fully understand what the nuances and caveats are of them. It's like when people, misappropriate crime statistics to say that, Black communities commit crime more often, or what they're not understanding is our culture of how we police before we even get to those statistics. So if you don't have a fundamental understanding of the conditions that are producing those numbers, which really is a geography field, it's that interdisciplinary studying sociodemographics, studying, you know, how crises unfold in different communities, natural disasters, things like that. That is the biggest barrier to being successful in this.
I got another question here. There are tensions between being fast and relevant and being right. Thoughts on navigating this? For example, calibration of early models. Early models relied on limited data. Was it better to do the best they could with what was available, or should they have waited?
All we ever do is the best that we can do with the data available. There might be half the papers today, hypothetically, could be disproven tomorrow with new information. That is all any of us is ever doing. And especially in a crisis when we need information, we only use what we have. As climate, I might be more biased towards that because there's not exactly a place to just go ask or gather information about storms, a million years ago. I have to go get that, and I'm only going to be able to get so much of it, and I have to use what I can get. That is all we ever do. And I don't think it's about being relevant so much as it is providing the information that we have. And this goes back to that being very careful to say what you don't know. Just say what the limitations are on your data. Even if it's something that you don't feel like you have quite enough data to do an analysis for, you need to say, well, this is the data we have and this is what it shows, but we really need to collect more data before we can fully understand how this plays a role. A great example is Florida's racial and ethnicity data. We were pressured by the White House to release this data, even though we did not have confidence in it, because 50% of the case data for race and ethnicity, we didn't have an answer for. These are people who go through drive-through testing and they give them their driver's license and there's no other demographic information taken. And it takes an epidemiologist to call somebody and ask that information, assuming they provide it, which a lot of people don't, to get that data. To this day, about 30% of the race and ethnicity data is not declared within our cases. If 500,000 cases and 30% of them at least don't have race and ethnicity data, we still do analysis with that information because that's the information we have available. But we always made very clear, because we were pressured to release it before it was full, that look, there's 30% of this we don't know. It could be 99% white, it could be 99% black, it could be 100% anything. We don't know. But what we do know is this. There's actually a lot of great studies being done to try to fill in those gaps based on zip code data. And we really could have, if we wanted to, use the address data that we had to do that, but they didn't. That's the things I asked for. But all we're ever doing is using what we have and doing the best we can with that information. If you think about, hurricane projections 100 years ago with the Galveston hurricane, there were people who were saying, hey, we have ships telling us this, not a lot of great information, but it was enough to say, we know there's a storm in this general area. We're not sure where it's going completely, but we know there's something there. That is reporting timely with the information that you have, which, I obviously think is what we need to do, because people are going to ask us questions and we need to be able to defend our answers. And it's not a relevance thing. It's really not the first person to, get this information out there. I don't feel like that's what's happening. It may be internally in academia what a lot of people are seeing, but publicly what I've seen is that it's people trying to get the information out to the public that they have at the time, because it's all we have.
Thank you.
If we had waited a long time to say, this or that, we would have been hindering to an extent the development of other resources. And I don't think that during a pandemic is what we should be doing.
All right, thanks. I see another question here.
can't see the chat.
Oh, well, I'm in the Q&A, the chat. Well, here's one. What are the challenges working with the COVID-19 data?
There's a lot. There's a long list. I'm sure every single person who presents today is going to present some challenge that they face in getting this data, using it, analyzing it, trying to come up with any definitive conclusions of anything, which we don't really have. So I don't think that I could in one minute tell you everything that's wrong with the data, but it is.
Oh, sorry, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. I still couldn't tell you in 5 minutes everything that's wrong with that data. And the other caveat to this too is that I've been so soaked into Florida this whole time that I couldn't tell you what's wrong with New York's data. I lived and breathed Florida. I still do, more so now to other states now that I'm involved with the COVID monitor, but I couldn't tell you what's wrong with New York's data. The people who work with that data day and night are the ones who can tell you what's wrong with it. And for Florida, there's a long, long list. And if you want to email me, I will be more than glad to send you that list. I make it public all the time, so it's not hard to get. But the challenges with working with this data is that it's all over the place. That's the short answer. It's all over the place.
So I have a very good question here. At the policy level, what do you think policymakers should do besides not silencing people speaking the truth? Is there a role for, say, NIST to play?
For NIST?
Yeah, I'm not sure if if you can post the acronym NIST. What does that stand for?
National Institute of Science and Technology, maybe?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So a lot of scientists do speak with policymakers. Now, a lot of you might not have never done that, but there are a lot of professors who, let's say, have tenure and have some sense of security that do meet one-on-one with their congressional leaders and talk to them about science issues. I don't know how effective of a strategy that is, because everything is so politicized right now and everything is so split in a crazy, insane kind of way. But honestly, what I have seen is that the more the public is outraged, the more that they cry out for something to change, the more likely it is that something will move. So instead of going directly to policymakers, which I absolutely encourage you to try to do, some are more open than others, you should speak to the press, because that's where people are getting their information. Yeah, the press might interview a policymaker, but it's still the press bringing the information. They are the fourth estate. And they are the people who are supposed to be holding people accountable and delivering information. So do not be afraid of them. You do need a strategy when you talk to them. If you've never done it before, message me. I will give you pointers. I never did it in my life until, all of this happened to me, and I was terrified the first time I did it. Chris Cuomo is very intimidating, but also somebody I still speak to almost every single day. So they are not an enemy. I know in academia, everybody hates the media because they make everything sound stupid, or they take a headline that's not really what you thought, or they focus on things that you didn't think were important, but their job is to deliver information that people care about. And that is a tool that has limitless power, honest to God, limitless power. And you need to speak to them and reach out to them and be accessible to the media. That is so important. That is where we all belong, is being members of or contributors to the press. And if you want to message me about how to do that, all day. I always encourage members of the media to speak out to the press, or members of science. God, I see, and now I'm like Frizzlebraid. Members of academia to speak to the press. I actually trained faculty at LSU on how to do it. So if you want to reach out to me, I will guide you through that process.
Hey, just a friendly reminder, it's NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Okay, I was close.
All right, we got 1 minute left. I guess, do you have any closing remarks?
Isn't over, and I appreciate all of the work you guys are doing. I appreciate that I was even asked to do this. It's been a crazy 9 months, or well, I guess for me 8 months, 9 months for some of you guys, our little COVID baby. But the work you're doing matters. You matter. Don't forget that there's a world out there still. Sometimes we all get depressed because we're hiding in our houses and well, I'm hiding because if I go out, the governor might, arrest me or something, but, because of the plague. But the work you're doing matter, and you matter, and take care of your health, your mental health, and keep doing what you're doing, because this stuff changes the world every single day, every day. And I hope that when this is over, that you use the skills and the resources that you've come up with for this epidemic to apply it to other global crises, because we're problem solvers and the world will never run out of problems.